Good morning. I'm Kenyon McDuffie, at-large council member and chair of the council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, and we're convening this roundtable in person and via Zoom. The time is now 10:07 a.m. and I'm calling this public roundtable to order. Today, the committee will receive testimony on two measures, PR 25-388, the Alcoholic Beverage Cannabis Board Donovan W. Anderson Confirmation Resolution of 2023, and PR 25-475, the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board Silas H. Grant Jr. Confirmation Resolution of 2023. As a reminder, witnesses, actually, there are no public witnesses on for these two measures today. So first, we're going to consider PR 25-388, the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board Donovan W. Anderson Confirmation Resolution of 2023. This proposed resolution was introduced on September 18th, 2023 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor and referred to the committee on October 3rd, 2023. This proposed resolution would confirm the reappointment of Mr. Donovan Anderson as a member of and as chairperson of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board for a term to end May 7th, 2027. Mr. Anderson has served on the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board since 2015 and currently serves as a chair. He's been an advocate for DC families around special education needs for nearly 20 years, both inside and outside the school system. After spending nearly 10 years within the school system, Mr. Anderson started and has had its own successful law firm since 2000. Mr. Anderson received his Bachelor of Arts from Colgate University and a Juris Doctor from Georgetown University Law Center. He is a resident of Ward 7. The second measure, as I mentioned, is PR 25-475. The Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board Silas H. Grant Jr. Confirmation Resolution of 2023, which was introduced on October 6, 2023 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor and referred to the committee on October 18th of this year. This proposed resolution would confirm the appointment of Mr. Silas H. Grant Jr. as a member of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board, replacing Ed Grandis for a term to end on May 7th, 2027. Mr. Grant Jr. has dedicated his life to community engagement and activism in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and dedicates much of his time to volunteerism, as well as developing the next generation of public leaders. He served as an elected official in the District of Columbia as a former advisory neighborhood commissioner and a former chair of the Ward 5 Democrats, and has assisted in the implementation of gang and violence prevention programs throughout the District of Columbia. Mr. Grant received a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from Hampton University. He is a Ward 5 resident. And I'm going to call up both witnesses today since we're in person and we got enough chairs. We can call you both up at the same time. And I'm going to swear you both in as nominees. If you don't mind standing and raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm on the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide before the Council of the District of Columbia and the Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you both. You can have a seat. I'm going to begin with Mr. Anderson. Some of you both have testimony you'd like to read into the record. Appreciate you both being here and your willingness to serve. You can begin with your statement, Mr. Anderson.
Good morning, Chairperson McDuffie, members of the Committee on Business and Economic Development, and committee staff. My name is Donovan Anderson, a Ward 7 resident and current chairperson of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board. I'm happy to testify before you this morning in support of my renomination to the board. First, I would like to thank Mayor Muriel Bowser for her decision to reappoint me as chairperson of the board for a third term. I would also like to thank Chairperson McDuffie for holding this hearing. As an active community member and district resident since 1986, I have thoroughly appreciated the honor of serving as chairperson since my initial appointment in November of 2015. I am currently a resident of Hillcrest neighborhood in Ward 7, where I have resided for approximately 21 years. I am a practicing attorney in the district. I have been the principal of my own law practice since 2000, the law office of Donovan Anderson, PC. In my practice, I represent parents in administrative due process hearings for purpose of ensuring that District of Columbia public and charter schools provide the appropriate educational services to our most vulnerable student population, students with disabilities and special needs. I also represent a district charter school to ensure that it develops policies and programs to effectively serve as its students with disabilities and special needs. In addition to my professional career, I am a dedicated public servant. For several years, I have served as an advisory neighborhood commission for my Hillcrest community, ANC 7B06, including serving as vice chair of ANC 7B. I've also served on the boards of several community and charitable organizations in the district, including Us Helping Us People to Live in, Inc., the District of Columbia Notary Board, the Hillcrest Civic Association, Concerned Black Men, Inc. of Washington, D.C., Advocates for Justice and Education, Inc., the Pastoral Council of St. Augustine Catholic Church, the Anacostia Coordinated Council, and the Epilepsy Foundation of Metropolitan Washington. I have thoroughly enjoyed my service on the board, and having my own law practice has provided me with the flexibility to attend the board's regular Wednesday meetings. Of note, I have attended all of the board's scheduled Wednesday meetings during my tenure as chairperson. I believe my significant experience and passion for administrative law has assisted the board in holding fair and efficient hearings while maintaining a manageable case load. I have worked efficiently with my fellow board members to ensure that their voices are heard, to ensure that the board renders decisions that are in the best interest of the District of Columbia. I believe that my prior community experience, including my previous service as an ANC commissioner, has allowed me to properly examine and balance the concerns of district residents and community organizations regarding liquor license and medical cannabis applications with the interests of new and existing business. Practicing in administrative law has allowed me to recognize the importance of the agency in providing assistance and educating individuals who appear before the board without an attorney. During my second term as chairperson, the board took over oversight of the district's medical cannabis program that had previously been with DC Health. The board has welcomed and has been energized by this new responsibility. The board is excited about where the program is headed in fiscal year 2024 and beyond. We appreciate the committee's willingness to work with our agency, the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration, on legislative issues related to medical cannabis patient access, social equity, and revamping the medical cannabis facility application process that has strengthened the medical cannabis program. With regard to alcohol issues, the board has been very productive during my tenure as chairperson, approving more than 117 settlement agreements between liquor license applicants and advisory neighborhood commissions, community organizations, and members of the public in fiscal year 23. The board has also imposed fines in 78 cases involving violations and imposed 30 liquor license suspensions in fiscal year 23. I would like to discuss 4 of my priorities if I'm reappointed as chairperson. First, I intend to work with the board to finalize the medical cannabis emergency and propose rulemaking that makes changes to the district's medical cannabis regulations as a result of the Medical Cannabis Amendment Act of 2022 that took effect on March 22nd, 2023. The board held a public hearing on the proposed rules on June 7th, 2023, and made changes to the rules in response to community feedback. Second, I intend to work with the agency, the council, and stakeholders on getting one or more testing laboratories operational in the district. It is critical that medical cannabis and medical cannabis products sold in the district have been tested to verify that they are safe and give patients information regarding the potency of the cannabis or cannabis products that they're using. The board approved its first conditional license testing laboratory license application in September of 2023. Emergency legislation adopted by the council earlier this year will play an important role in attracting testing laboratories into the district. I look forward to working with the committee and stakeholders on additional challenges that need to be addressed for testing laboratories to open in the district. Third, I and other board members are prepared for a role as part of the 90-day unlicensed establishment open application period that begins on November 1st, 2023 and ends on January 29th, 2024. As the committee is aware, during this time frame, unlicensed establishments that satisfy specific statutory criteria are permitted to apply to the board for medical cannabis retailer, internet retailer, or cultivation center license. Complete applications that satisfy the requirement criteria will undergo a 45-day comment period with notice to those agencies in the affected ward. The board is aware of and intends to satisfy the statutory requirement that it hold contested protest hearings within 120 days of receiving a timely protest from an affected advisory neighborhood commission regarding an unlicensed establishment application. Fourth, I intend to work with the agency, stakeholders, and the committee in examining whether the current length of time that a medical cannabis patient card is issued to district residents should be revisited. District resident patients cards are currently valid for 2 years. Other jurisdictions have extended the registration period of resident medical cannabis patients beyond 2 years. Of note, the state of Maryland in 2022 extended the registration period of their medical cannabis patient card to 6 years. The state of Illinois offers patients the option of a 3-year medical cannabis patient registration. I look forward to further exploring this issue with the committee. In closing, I would like to thank the committee for considering my nomination. If confirmed, I will work to build upon the current success of the board and ABCA. I will continue to spend the time and energy necessary as chairperson to provide the high quality of service that residents of the District of Columbia expect and deserve. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony, Mr. Anderson. We're going to turn to Mr. Grant for your testimony.
Greetings to Chairperson McDuffie and members and staff of the Committee on Business and Economic Development. I am Silas H. Grant Jr., nominee for the district's Alcohol, Beverage, and Cannabis Board, also known as the ABC Board. It is my honor to be nominated by Mayor Muriel Bowser to serve in this capacity. As a lifelong Washingtonian, Ward 5 resident, and a long-standing public servant, I am eager to serve district residents as a member of the ABC Board. My life in public service began as a campaign volunteer in the 2006 election cycle here in the district. Eager to give back, I began knocking on doors, phone banking, and covering poll sites for candidates. This experience afforded me the opportunity to hear directly from hundreds, if not thousands, of residents throughout the city. Then a 27-year-old man, I kept hearing the same messages from residents. We need more young people like you engaged in the political and legislative process. In late 2006, I decided to become a candidate myself. I sought the position of single-member district representative for 5C09 within Advisory Neighborhood Commission 5C. This SMD represented a portion of the Edgewood community, the community where I was raised. It was a humbling experience to have my elders and peers cast votes for my support of my candidacy. My neighbors elected me, and I was officially sworn in on January 2nd, 2007. Serving in the community where I was born and raised has been one of the largest honors for me. In that role, I had several opportunities to consider alcohol license applications and their impact on communities. Along with reviewing alcoholic license applications, I have participated in several negotiations between parties that involve the consideration of permits, licenses, variances, and adjustments. It was a responsibility that I took extremely seriously. During my 3-term service as commissioner, I developed working relationships with businesses that served alcohol, ensuring that they were abiding by District of Columbia laws and regulations. Beyond the requirement for upholding district law, I worked to ensure that license holders in my SMD were aware of the privilege of such licenses. My goal was to uphold the law while advocating for appropriate service and decorum from licensees in the areas of customer service as well as community service. During my tenure as an ANC commissioner, I also volunteered and served on the Edgewood Civic Association as the co-chair of the youth committee with the late Commissioner Marshall Phillips. In this capacity as a committee member, while also being a community partner with the Civic Association, I regularly engaged with the board members to ensure that licensees were in good standing with residents and the greater community. I spearheaded cleanups, walkthroughs, and received assistance from licensees to hold these events. The goal was always to ensure that collaboration and consideration for adjacent residents was at the forefront of the mission of the businesses holding alcoholic licenses. After transitioning out of my role in the ANC, I served as senior advisor in the office of the Ward 5 council member. This role involved me responding to constituent concerns of more than 80,000 residents. Constituent concerns is a huge task, but one that I enjoyed. I was fulfilled by the ability to aid so many in need throughout Ward 5. While reflecting on my duties as a staffer, I am reminded of a protest hearing on a new license that was being considered in ANC 5A. I was assigned to cover the meetings on behalf of the office. ANC 5A's chair requested that our office get involved in supporting the protest of the application in question. After hearing the overwhelmingly unanimous opposition of an additional license in the North Michigan Park community, I testified on behalf of the council office in support of ANC 5A's opposition to the application. We worked directly with this community as they organized a showing of opposition to a license that they believed would have an adverse impact on the quality of life in North Michigan Park. This license application was denied for long-standing residents as well as new residents in this community. These are two examples of my experiences involving licensing considerations related to the ABC board, as well as my commitment to serving my community. They display my ability to examine scenarios and display decisiveness necessary for the position I'm being nominated for. I am committed not only to assisting our local businesses, but also understanding how these applications can affect the quality of life for our district residents. Much like in my prior public service, in this role, I intend to uphold the quality of life standards desired by our residents. Simultaneously, I'm committed to ensuring that new and existing applicants are afforded a fair opportunity for expedient proceedings as they pursue business opportunities that include alcohol and medical cannabis licensing. I truly believe we can achieve both goals of protecting civility and decency in communities while advancing economic progress for businesses in the alcohol and medical cannabis industries. And when it pertains to medical cannabis specifically, we are embarking upon a relatively new frontier. There's a lot to learn and process. I'm committed to the learning process that is in front of us all. There are also opportunities to teach those who may be apprehensive about the existence of the authorized use and selling of medical cannabis products. It is also clear that the district must continue to convey a clear message that this new industry will be subjected to regulation sufficient to ensure that the safety and well-being of us all. Service to the District of Columbia is embedded in my purpose. As a note, While not directly related to this work, I've also served as a representative on the Bicycle Advisory Council, as a member of the Commission on Fathers, Men, and Boys, and as a former chair of the Ward 5 Democrats. Currently, I serve as a board member for Reading Partners DC, where I am honoring my deceased father, Silas Grant Sr., to eradicate childhood illiteracy. I love this city, and I'm honored to be considered for such a position. I'm grateful to Mayor Bowser for this nomination. I have observed this board, and I applaud the efforts of each member, in particular Chairperson Anderson for his leadership over the past several years. Chairperson McDuffie, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm available to answer any questions you or other committee members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Grant, for your testimony. I'm going to ask some questions of you both. Start out with some standard questions and maybe some more specific questions that I'm going to direct to each of you. Mr. Donovan, are you a district resident, and if confirmed, do you intend to reside in the district for the entirety of your appointment?
Yes, I'm a district resident and I intend to reside in district for the entirety of my appointment.
Mr. Donovan, have you been or are you a member of any district government board or commission outside of your existing capacity on APCA?
No,
Do you or does any member of your immediate family have any interest, financial or otherwise, that may directly or indirectly pose a conflict of interest for you in the performance of your duties?
no,
Are you an attorney? And if so, are you a member of any state bar?
yes, I'm a member of the DC Bar since 1989.
Okay, and are you in good standing currently?
Yes, I'm in good standing.
Do you have any outstanding liability for taxes, fees, or other payments to the district, federal, state, or other local government, either contested or uncontested?
No,
I'm gonna ask the same questions of you, Mr. Grant. Are you a district resident, and if confirmed, do you intend to reside in the District of Columbia for the entirety of your employment?
I am a district resident living in Ward 5, and I do intend on remaining in the district for the entire term.
Have you been or are you a member of any district government board or commission?
I was formerly on the Commission on Fathers, Men, and Boys, and formerly on the Bicycle Advisory Council, but no other ones currently.
Okay. Do you or does any member of your immediate family have any interest, financial or otherwise, that may directly or indirectly pose a conflict of interest for you in the performance of your duties?
No conflicts.
I don't think you are, but I'll ask the question anyway. Are you an attorney?
I'm not.
Do you have any outstanding liability for taxes, fees, or other payments to the district, federal, state, or other local government, either contested or uncontested?
No, I don't.
Thank you. And Mr. Anderson, the board's enabling legislation requires members to possess certain attributes and refrain from certain conduct during their terms. With regard to the statute, have you resided, and some of this stuff is going to be redundant, but I want to make sure, I said some of these questions might be a little redundant, but I want to make sure the record is complete.
okay,
And I know you've answered this multiple times during your tenure, but bear with me. Have you resided in the District of Columbia continuously since 2020?
yes,
Have you claimed principal residence anywhere else other than the District of Columbia since 2020?
no,
Do you hold any other office or employment in the District of Columbia government?
no, I do not.
DC Code 25-260C requires a record of substantial involvement in issues related to the community impact of licensed establishments prior to appointment. You clearly have a record from having served as long as you have on this board, but I want to give you an opportunity just to talk briefly to your demonstrated record of involvement. Maybe you want to go outside of your work. on the board. You don't have to. I think it obviously qualifies you to stay in your seat, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment on that.
Thank you. I have, prior to joining the board, of course, I was an ANC commissioner. I was involved in alcohol issues during that period of time. Since I've been on the board, I have attended, of course, for the past since 2015, but I have attended numerous conferences on both alcohol and cannabis to more so make myself more comfortable in this area of law. And as an attorney, as you know, it's much easier. Once you learn the law, you can, I've been a practicing attorney in administrative law. So once you learn the law, you can apply the law in the area. But as I stated before, I've gone to numerous conferences since 2015. I've also joined the International Cannabis Association Attorneys, and I went to a conference with that specific conference last year in Las Vegas to learn more about cannabis. I attended a conference again this summer at GHW to learn more about cannabis. I will be attending a conference in November of this year to learn about cannabis. So I've outside of my day-to-day job on Wednesdays to learn about alcohol and cannabis, I have made myself disposable to attend conferences, as many conferences as possible, to make sure that I'm well versed in cannabis and alcohol, so I can make decisions that are in the best interest of the residents of the District of Columbia.
Thank you for that answer. And DC Code also bars members of the board from having an interest in selling, transporting, or storing alcoholic beverages or receiving commission or profit from any person licensed under this title to sell alcoholic beverages. Would this provision prevent you from serving on the board?
No.
The code also bars former members from representing clients before the board for a period of 1 year after their tenure. Do you have any reason to believe that you would not be able to abide by this obligation?
No, I do not.
Mr. Grant, have you resided in the district continuously since 2020?
Yes, I have.
And have you claimed principal residence anywhere else other than the district since 2020?
No, I have not.
Do you hold any other office or employment in the District of Columbia government?
No, I do not.
As I mentioned earlier with Mr. Anderson, DC Code requires a record of substantial involvement in issues related to the community impact of licensed establishments prior to appointment. You touched on this in your testimony earlier about your experience, but just an opportunity if you want to elaborate a little bit more about your experience related to the community impact of licensed establishments.
Sure. So again, as I mentioned in my testimony, my 3 terms as a commissioner in what was formerly ANC 5E, which is now 5E, gave me the direct opportunity to engage with the holders of licenses within my SMD, and also when they were up for renewal, being able to weigh in on whether or not they should be renewed. Also, my experience working in the council, working alongside ANCs that were considering the license applications, gives me a different viewpoint. So as a commissioner, it was a direct sort of experience navigating as the bridge between what was formerly ABRA and the licensees. But then working in the council, it gave me a different lens to be able to look at it from a perspective of support for the ANCs that need the council support in some situations. So those 2 perspectives are what I lean on with respect to my journey into this position.
And you live in Ward 5?
Yes, I live in Ward 5.
In my office as an award member when I was represented Ward 5, and it's just something that comes up pretty regularly.
Yes.
I think in particular in the 8 wards across the District of Columbia, I know some wards more than others. Obviously, I think Ward 2 as the ward with more businesses, I think, and having downtown in it. Ward 6, Ward 5, I know 7 has a number of challenges every now and again where Mr. Anderson resides, but I wanted to just make sure that was reflected. The code also bars members of the board from having an interest in selling, transporting, or storing alcoholic beverages or receiving commission or profit from any person licensed under this title to sell alcoholic beverages. Would this provision prevent you from serving on the board?
It won't.
The code also bars former members from representing clients before the board for a period of 1 year after their tenure. Do you have any reason to believe that this would not, that you would not be able to abide by this obligation?
I have no reason.
Right. I'm gonna direct this question to Mr. Anderson. As the current chairperson and member of the board, talk a bit about some of the challenges you've observed while serving on the board, and perhaps how you and your colleagues were able to address it.
I think one of the, and this is something I want the agency and the board to address more. I see licensees, someone applies for a license. I apply for a license to open a bar. And because I receive my license, I can change my occupancy. I can add a summer garden. I can add a dance floor. I can have a DJ. And a lot of licensees believe that they do not have to come back to our agency to make these changes. And so this is an issue that they might innocently make, but if you want to make changes to any aspect of your business, you're supposed to come back to the board and receive approval. And so that's something that I'm going to talk to the director to make maybe more so in having in the training for new licensees to advise them of these changes, because this is something that always occurs. And once they appear in front of the board, there's not much I can do because you have committed a violation. And so that's something that we always talk about. And it's most times it's an innocent mistake that they have made. But by the time they get to the board, there's really not much I can do, because I would have to, I'm reading the statute, or there are regulations to say you're violated and there is a penalty. And so that's an issue that I've seen. And that's something that I intend to work with the director to try to see if we can make some changes with that, and more in informing the new licensees about how they, once they receive a license, what are some of the things they can do or cannot do
Within the scope of that license, as opposed to things that they might need another permit or have to pay a fee or some other agency to be able to do.
Right, that they need to come back to the agency, because I think most people, I'm operating my business, so I don't need to come back to you. But I think in this sphere, if you are going to increase your occupancy, if you're going to have a DJ, if you're going to have a summer garden, and you change your name.
Yep.
I just feel like I don't like the name, I'm going to change the name. And so when our investigators show up and we're looking for John Doe business and we say, see Mary Sue. And so there's a violation right there. And so when it comes to us, there's not much I can do, but there's an infraction. And so that's something that that is something that I've seen over and over, and we need to try to figure out how to address that issue.
Yeah, I don't know if this is directly related, but I had a question that I wanted to ask, because I know in your testimony, you sort of noted the importance of the agency in providing assistance and educating individuals who appear before the board without an attorney. I don't believe necessarily, even as an attorney, that a person who interacts with their government business that interacts with his government should require the assistance of an attorney. But I think some of what you just talked about, making sure that applicants understand what they can and cannot do with the specific license under APCA is very important. Do you see any other areas where there are sort of recurring themes to some of the challenges that either the board is seeing by applicants or the board is seeing from residents or ANC commissioners?
I think that, and as you know, there are other folks have raised concerns regarding settlement agreements, and sometimes some licensees might feel that, okay, I have to sign a settlement agreement because I don't want to come in front of the board. Mm-hmm. But I think that
I've heard that before.
I think our agency, I believe, you don't necessarily need an attorney, because our agency is here to help you. All you have to do is ask. We're not a got you agency.
Mhm.
So if you don't know what you're doing, if you come to the agency, talk to one of our licensing specialists. We will walk you through the process. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that. And I also tell that to licensees when I meet them, is that we're not trying to get you, we're here to help you. So I need you to call our agency. If you're doing something wrong, we're not gonna, if we will educate you on what the law is. But I think those are some of the issues that I more so see, that I don't think most people believe that they can come to the agency and say, these are the concerns I'm having. Can you tell me what I need to do?
You talked about in your testimony, having, went to a conference.
Yes.
I think I lost my mic for a moment. You talked about in your testimony, having gone to a conference, to educate yourself and get more information about cannabis, which continues to be an emerging industry, albeit with limitations in the District of Columbia, as compared to other jurisdictions. How do you see things going? I know, myself and my committee and staff have worked extensively with you, Director Musali. And I'll go ahead and note that we also have APCA member, Mr. Grandis is also here. But we've worked extensively with the board and the staff at ABRA around cannabis legislation and administration. How do you see things going, just generally speaking? And are you benefiting from some of the conferences and other information that you've been able to take in around cannabis, given the distinction that the District of Columbia has without having an adult use market like other places at this point?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Council Member, for your assistance in working with the agency, your assistance, and also the council's assistance in giving us some flexibility in making the medical program work. As you're aware, because of the rider in our budget, we cannot legalize recreational. But one of the things that we have
That's a
done.
federal budget, just to be clear.
Yes, I'm sorry. The federal, on Capitol Hill, in our congressional budget, there is a rider that prevents us from legalizing cannabis. But I think one of the things that we have done here in the District of Columbia, with the help of your committee and the council as a whole, it's self-certification in the sense that you can self-certify at 21 to say you need it for medicinal purposes, and so therefore you can get a card. So that has helped. That has helped us. We do look forward to have recreational cannabis utilization here in the district. But I think that what we have done so far with the assistance of the council is to try to make this medicine available to the public who really needs it, without, in spite of the rider in our budget. In attending the conferences, and I believe, I told everyone that my first conference, I went to the MJ Biz conference in Las Vegas, and this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. There will, I believe, at some point that there will be federal legalization. That because it is, you have let the cart before the horse, because there is so much business, there's so much money in this business. But so it's great to go to the conferences and learn to what it is, what other states are doing, because I know here within the District of Columbia, we will get to that stage at one point. And so I will be ready, the agency will be ready to, once we are able to have recreational, that we should be able to move forward. And one of the things that I demand that my director goes to conferences, I go to conferences, and I also ensure that the board goes to conferences, because we need to know what's going on in the country, because we're not just, although we're the nation's capital, but we need to know what's going on in other states by going to conferences. And for once we have that, the ability to have recreational services here in the district, that we'll be ready for that. And I think we're on that road, because Director Musali and his staff have done a great job in getting up to speed in what is required to move forward.
Okay. Mr. Grant, unlike Mr. Anderson, who served on the board for quite some time now, you would be a new member if confirmed by this committee and eventually the full council. Talk a little bit about why you want to serve.
Sure. So for me, again, as a lifelong resident here in DC, and throughout my career as a public servant, I've always wanted to be a bridge between people. I've always sought out to bring people together. And I think what's happening now in the district is that we're seeing more people entering the business sort of space, and we're seeing more everyday residents do that, right? And I think in generations past, we saw business people as being a separate sort of class of people. And because we're seeing everyday people take the risk of going out into business, I think these application processes between everyday people that are serving as commissioners and people that are in the business community, there's going to be a need for more bridge building. And I want to be able to be a part of that process. I think this board and this agency, as Chairperson Anderson mentioned, it's not a gotcha board, right? It's a board that's in place to be able to help people. And that's what I've done throughout my career. And I want to be able to utilize this opportunity to help small business people, but also people that are serving as ANCs understand the process.
And in your testimony, you talked about alcoholic license applications and their impact on the community. You talked about, businesses receiving the license, that it's really a privilege. And I wanted to note that and have you talk a little bit more about that. But I also wanted to point out something else you said in your testimony, if you give me one moment. But while I look for it, it's essentially, to paraphrase, it was about sort of balancing the equities between the community and the applicants who come before the board. As a former ANC commissioner, I'm sure you've had to confront that in the past. But you also said that you're committed to ensuring that new and existing applicants are afforded a fair opportunity for expedient proceedings. But you also talked about the quality of life standards desired by our residents. And I think I wanted to point that out because I think that's something that the board confronts frequently, if not every time an applicant comes before the board for approval, even if they don't necessarily have a protest or something else. I imagine it's an essential component of what they do. And so I wanted to get you to speak to what you meant by the license essentially being a privilege and how you might approach, balancing the equities between the community's desires, maintain a certain quality of life, and the interests of the city and having businesses be able to do business in a climate that affords them a fair opportunity to get a license, a permit, et cetera.
Sure. So with respect to my statement about the license process and being approved, being a privilege, there's a lucrative opportunity in every situation where an applicant comes to the board to obtain a license. And they understand the difference between what it's like to not have a license and what it's like to have a license. And so because of that, we want to make sure that applicants are not coming before the board, gaining licenses and then abusing that. Again, in Chairperson Anderson's dialogue with you, he talked about the businesses coming back in an appropriate fashion to update the board on what's happening. Now, some of that may be just their lack of knowledge, right? But if there are situations where people are taking advantage of that, then I think the punitive measures and response have to be a reflection of the fact that there is a privilege that comes along with having the license, and along with that privilege is a major responsibility on being communicative and providing as much information on the front end as possible.
I appreciate Mr. Anderson's testimony. He outlined a number of items in terms of what his priorities would be if reappointed and confirmed as chairperson. I don't expect you to have that sort of institutional knowledge, but have you given thought to any areas or any priorities that you might have, or how you might want to approach this work if confirmed as a member of the board?
Yes, if confirmed, for me, my first priority is making sure that I am as visible and available as possible to potential applicants, making sure that myself and my colleagues in this effort are making ourselves available, being communicative to the applicants, and again, not playing the role of gotcha or go somewhere else and get the answer, but trying to provide as much support as we can. I talked about it earlier. For me, I really want to be a bridge builder, and I want to make sure that every party involved in every application feels like they're being heard and that we're responding to them. And so as I get up to speed on the nuances of the board, for me, I definitely want to make sure up front that I am making myself available to listen, to learn, and to respond.
Okay. Thank you for that response. I mentioned that you used to work in my office. I know you own your own business now. I think you're the founder and CEO of Quality People Solutions, LLC. I understand that it does business with district government. Do you anticipate any potential future conflicts of interest if approved as a member of the board?
I don't anticipate any conflicts.
Any concerns beyond any questions I've asked about joining the board? You talked about why you want to serve. Just give me an opportunity to express any concerns you might have with joining the board.
At this point, I don't have any concerns.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, how many members of the board are there?
Currently, there are 5 members.
Okay.
There are currently 5 members
And
on the board currently.
how
as
many are
of-
serving in holdover capacity?
Of the 5 members, 4 are serving in holdover.
Okay, and you need how many to consist of to make a quorum?
3 members to be a quorum.
Okay, and are these appointments, is time of the essence in these appointments?
Yes, they are of time of the essence because
Okay.
the holdover process, the holdover for the chair and the other members, the other 4 members expires, I believe, on November 3rd. And the next board meeting is, we meet every Wednesday, but after November 3rd, there is a board meeting on November 8th. And so therefore, it is imperative that we have a quorum so we can operate, because as you're aware, the agency cannot operate without the board. And so so that's where we are.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else that you'd like to add to the record? I don't have any additional questions. Mr. Anderson, anything else you'd like to add to the record?
I want to thank you. I want to thank the mayor for having the confidence in me to reappoint me for a 3rd term. And I also want to thank you, Mr. McDuffie, for your assistance in helping our agency to assist the residents of the District of Columbia. If confirmed, I've thoroughly enjoyed this position, as I stated, because I have my own firm. So therefore, I've dedicated Wednesdays to this is something that I want to do. And I look forward, if I am confirmed, to serve the residents of the District of Columbia for another 4 years. And I want to thank you again for having this hearing this morning.
And thank you for your willingness to serve, as I've mentioned previously. Mr. Grant, do you anticipate any challenges with making the Wednesday meetings that the board has?
No, I don't see any challenges with that.
I don't have any additional questions for you at this time either. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the record before we adjourn?
No, I have nothing else to add.
All right, well, thank you for your willingness to serve as well. I want to thank both of you for testifying today. As a reminder, those interested in submitting written testimony for the record may do so until 5 p.m. Submissions should be uploaded via the new hearing management system on the council's website at dccouncil.gov. There being no further business before the committee, the time is now 10:56 a.m. and this marks the end of today's public roundtable.